Utility Regulatory Commission in a cause docketed before the Commission as cause number 46162, captioned as Appeal by Brian Davis of the Consumer Affairs Division's decision concerning the provision of water utility services by Indiana American Water. Notice of the time and place of the hearing was given as provided by law by publication in Marion County in the Indianapolis Star on December 20th, 2024, in Lake County in the Post-Tribune on December 19th, 2024, also in Lake County in the Northwest Indiana Times on December 20th, 2024. These are newspapers of general circulation, and these publications were made at least 10 days prior to the date of the evidentiary hearing. The proofs of publication of the notices have been received by the Commission and are now incorporated into the record of this cause by reference and placed in the official files of the Commission. Notice has also been given to the Indiana Office of Utility Consumer Counselor and other interested parties. May we have appearances, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. On behalf of Indiana American Water Company, please accept the appearance of Hillary J. Close, Lauren Aguilar, and Alejandro Ricard from the law firm of Barnes & Thornburg, LLP.
Okay, and Mr. Davis, can you introduce yourself, please?
Brian Davis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. On behalf of the public, please accept the appearance of Victor Peters of the Indiana Office of Utility Consumer Counselor.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to swear you in, Mr. Davis. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you will give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. So at this time, I will move to admit what's been marked as URC Exhibit 1, which is the Consumer Affairs Division record of Mr. Davis's complaint, into the record. Are there any objections?
Our respondent has no objections.
The public has no objections.
Any objections, Mr. Davis?
No.
Okay. URC Exhibit 1 is admitted into the record. So at this time, Mr. Davis, we're ready for you to tell me what you would like me to know about the record. So this is for argument, not for new evidence, and you have the floor.
Okay. I believe when I had talked to the previous ALJ, there was like a premise of the things that were going to be, or topics that were going to be discussed. So the three of them that I knew of, and that was the directional boring without potholing the spotting the bore as it passes other utilities. And specifically the gas pipeline in front of multiple homes, including mines, multiple excavators sharing and commingling with the same dig ticket to perform digging on my private property at rear of home to install a ground wire, and encroaching and accessing my private property without my knowledge, without understanding, and without approval for an emergency to complete a task that can be planned and scheduled. For the one about the directional boring, I submitted pictures. I don't know if those pictures will be shared, or but the pictures, I know when I talked to the CAD, at first, initially, I started out with Miss Lanier, and she had contacted the water company, and they stated that they did spot the bore. And I had told her that I had pictures and I had a communication with them about not spotting the bores and see if they can correct that. And she said they said that they did. So that's when I told her that I had photos that my, the cameras on homes capture that demonstrated or showed that that was not happening. And that first part of the, I don't know, for lack of better, the first part of the case, it was like closed without my knowledge. There were a whole lot of administrative and technical challenges that I went through this whole process, cases being closed, me having to refile, so on and so forth. There was a lack of understanding because they didn't even know that this was part of a water service line replacement program. They just thought that it was some emergency at my home and that they had the right to just come and start doing stuff because they believed that it was an emergency. And I had to clarify that it was not an emergency. This was actually a planned water replacement service line project. So then it got moved over to another gentleman, Mr. W. I would say I can't pronounce the last name. And I had tried to reach out to the director and explain to her some of the issues that I was having with the first person, Miss Lanier, but they would never pass me through to her so I can explain that. And I was hoping that we can get this all right because I thought, or I believe that the information I was provided was clear. And I thought the pictures clearly showed that there was no spotting of the bore as it passed the gas pipe in front of my home. Just to note that subsequently after they had finished the work, my camera captured the gas company was out in front of my house, opening up the ground about 2 feet from where they were and making restoration to a leak in that same premise. So I had sent over a second appeal to Mr. W. And I offered for, if there was any clarification that you needed along the line, I have an open line of communication. Please reach out to me. Just from my personal perception is that, well, I know they never reached out to me for any clarification, but they continued to talk with the water company and get clarification on their side. And I just believe that if they would have followed through with me and got some clarification, specifically because I invited them to come out to the location to do, put boots on the ground and have an on-site assessment of what actually was going on so that they can see that where the water intersect the gas pipeline, that the ground was not open to spot or pothole to verify that, that they didn't hit or, that they were safely passing the gas pipeline. Mr. W, I believe it's in my second response that my third appeal, that they asked the wrong question to the Consumer Pipeline Division. Were there locates out there? And they looked at the picture and said, well, there are locates out there, so there's no need for us to go out there. And that the pictures about the front, about the potholing was not about having proper locates. It was about spotting the bore. And if they would have came out there, they would have clearly seen the markings that are constantly refreshed will show that the ground was not opened up. The street was not opened up where the water service line intersects the gas pipeline. And that would give them a clear indication that did not happen. But because the question was asked wrong, it resulted in that, not occurring. I thought that would be a better fact-finding procedure, as far as seeing things in person as opposed to looking at a picture. And I thought the pictures were pretty clear. But that didn't work out. I know Miss Lynn, water company had brought in an electrician, I believe, and allowed them, and I think she had wrote it in the report or something, that she allowed them to, it was okay for them to do excavation or pounding of a second ground wire at my home in the back, and that they were allowed to use the same dig ticket that the water company had shared with them. And I tried to explain to her that no one is supposed to be sharing the same dig ticket, first of all. And I said, and I had no idea someone was going to be putting in a ground wire in the back of my home. That process wasn't explained to me. And when was it done? Why wasn't I here? Why didn't anyone ring my doorbell? You know, I found out they cut off the tag off the electric meter, which, you know, only the electric company is supposed to be cutting the tag off in order to deactivate the power from the house to work on the ground wire, all kinds of things. So um, I asked all those questions. No one had answers, but she had indicated that it was okay, even if they didn't have their own dig ticket, it was okay. And I differed with that. That's one of the reasons why I continue to persist on with the process, because that's not what the law states, that you can share the same dig ticket. Um, the So that was about, oh, and then as far as the ground wire, they never let me know. They told me something about a tariff or something, that the water company can access my property at any time for certain circumstances, but none of those circumstances that they had shared, I believe, were um, pertinent to this scenario, for emergencies, for dangers or so on and so forth. Whatever they had, it didn't pertain to my scenario. Everything about this project was about planning and communicating with the customer and letting the customer know what we need to do and explain to them the details of what we need to do. And, and they were saying that the water company has the right to do all this different stuff with or without my knowledge. And I know that there are several, residents in the whole community um, that decline the service. They said they can do what they need to do out in the right of way to put in their little water pit, but they don't want them on their property, and they decline that part of the service. So that was a inconsistency from what I was hearing, and that the water company is obligated, or that they have the right to do all these different water replacement service lines when other residents were declining these services. So when I found that inconsistency, the ground wire, I had a preference in the manner in which, the way that it should have been, because um, I found that they didn't. They did not get locates with non-member utilities that were not a part of 811. And I have sewer lines going out the back of my home. I have a geothermal loop field in the back of my home that is a private dairy hazard that that could have been affected. Um, I have projects that I am forecasting in that area that it disrupts that. And the other part of it is that the manner in which I was requesting it to be done in is probably about $20 worth of work, because they they put the ground wire, a buried naked wire, under the soil, and that wire is probably about the density of two hairs put together. It's bare copper. There's no way for me to inspect that I have continuity with the second ground, or to make future maintenance um, if the ground was lost. And previously, I could I would identify in my home, because the second ground was in my home. The second ground was there. There was a ground outside. Now I have no idea if I still have both continuities, and I sent them pictures of the way that um, most electricians are doing that, in order to allow the customer the ability to be able to ensure or maintain, or have knowledge that their ground is consistent and intact, and be able to do future maintenance if it is out of attack. But in the way that they did it, it causes me to have to excavate and tear up more land and yard in order to constantly check. Um, they had said that it was a requirement for all homes, but w- through my checking that there were many homes that they didn't do a second ground outside to. Um, so that was another inconsistency that I found. Many neighboring homes that they didn't do a second ground to. So I'm wondering, you know, what makes one home different from another. They couldn't explain that. Um, and then I reminded them that they said that every home had to have a second ground installed with the replacement of the water service line. So, but they could never explain that inconsistency when they said that every home had to have it. But when I said, why doesn't every home have one? They couldn't explain that either. Um, so ultimately, this the directional boring and not potholing, not spotting the bore has imminent dangers associated with it. Um, I put all that information in within my complaint um, every time. Um, I try to keep it simple to the point, not make it real convoluted because, you know, depending on, sometimes people can get mixed up. So I didn't want to get anything mixed up. And I invited them to come out to the property or to follow back up with me if the water company or whoever they were talking to had something that um, didn't align with what I was saying to get better clarification for me or on the spot clarity so I can better clarify that. That never happened. The first time they mailed the letter to the wrong address, um, letting me know that, they had found in favor of the water company. Um, it was only a neighbor happened to bring the letter down to me, and I opened it up and read it when I got home. And I came in the house and called, and they said, uh, well, today or yesterday was the last day or something. And you don't have time." So I was like, I would like to request, can I speak to the director? I had to call in. That was challenging because it was like everyone was insulating everyone and preventing me from trying to get to. I know Miss Lanier was a challenge with trying to reach her. I had to call her about 10 or 15 times. And it was a lot of challenges trying to reach her and to have continuity of communication. And that was frustrating in the beginning. And that's what I wanted to let the director of the department know, of those challenges so that, there can be some improvement for the customer because I'm trying to be a frontline person, see something, say something, let someone know about there's an imminent danger happening in front of my home that compromises my family, um, puts my community, my neighborhood at risk. Um, and it's unsettling. It's unsettling to know that this is happening in front of my home and for them to believe that they're doing everything right. And for me to understand that that is not right um, makes me believe that that performance is going to only continue on. And so far there's been luck, and safety is not supposed to be luck. So safety should be intentional. And I just don't want luck to run out somewhere. They're not on my block anymore, but I don't want luck to run out somewhere, anywhere, but especially in my community, in my city, in my town, near my neighborhood, and something goes wrong. Um, let's see. I think that's just uh, a synopsis over the three different scenarios that
Okay,
were at challenge.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So at this time, Indiana American Water will have their response, and then after them, the OUCC will have their response, and then we'll come back to you for rebuttal, okay?
Who is the OUCC?
Mr. Peters. Oh, it's the
Oh,
Office of Utility
okay.
Consumer Counselor, represented by Mr. Peters today.
Okay.
They're a statutory representative of customers of utilities.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Aguilar, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it is clear from Mr. Davis's statements here today that he appears to be frustrated with the process and the service repairs that occurred during his lead line service replacement. But the company can assure this commission and assure Mr. Davis that this work was carried out pursuant to a commission-approved program. It's carried out by trained professionals that the company ensures know to uphold the company's tariff, uphold applicable construction standards, electrical code, pipeline safety standards, and all other applicable standards. Mr. Davis cites some of those standards, but if I may, they are summarized within the CAD record at page 242 in the CAD's decision letter to Mr. Davis. And I would like to take an opportunity to provide some clarity around some of the circumstances Mr. Davis described. So with the potholing of the gas line, that occurred in the public right-of-way, not on Mr. Davis's property. And as shown in the CAD record, the claims of a gas leak were never actually substantiated. The Consumer Affairs Division has at its disposal the Commission's Pipeline Safety Division, which I don't see anything in the CAD record that indicates that they found any sort of safety danger. So while I can appreciate, that everyone wants to ensure that there are no gas leaks and that gas lines are safe, I believe in this instance the gas line is safe, and that Indiana American's contractors complied with all applicable safety standards. Regarding the electrical grounding, the boring rod that the grounding rod that Mr. Davis is referring to, that's not actually a dig. They actually take the rod and can insert it into the ground without doing any sort of digging. And as part of the lead line service replacement that occurred on Mr. Davis's property, sometimes older homes are grounded to certain water service lines, and during that replacement, that grounding is disturbed, and so they do make sure that all customers are brought to code, and electrical engineers brought in to inspect that and to ensure that they're brought up to code, and that's what was done here. Mr. Davis admits that he would have preferred for his convenience for it to be done in a different fashion, but the company, sets expectations in its tariff for all customers, so all customers know what to expect and to keep the risk of additional costs for other customers' convenience from being spread among all of Indiana American's customers. And our tariff clearly states that any relocation, removal, or modification is at the customer's cost, and the company is willing to undertake that work if Mr. Davis is willing to pay for the cost of that. And then I know as Mr. Davis has said, he's extremely frustrated with the process, but the company would just like, again, to assure the commission that everything was done to code. The CAD record found no substantiation of Mr. Davis's claims, and the company would just request that the commission uphold the CAD's decision.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. Mr. Peters?
Thank you, Your Honor. The OUCC is not taking a position in this proceeding and has no further remarks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peters. Mr. Davis, we're now at rebuttal, so if you would like to address any of the points made by Indiana American Water's response, you can do that now.
Okay, I was listening to the directional boring. Directional boring is also trenchless technology, which means that you are slipping under the earth blindly, and only way to understand what you are passing is if you open and expose that particular utility. Kind of like if you were to drive down a street with all the headlights out on cars at 12 midnight, you would not know what you were passing. You would not be able to see. So that's the premise and the purpose of potholing as you are passing um, other utilities. Mrs. Peters, I believe you said, she was correct that the gas main is in the right of way and it is not on my private property, but it's in the public right of way, and things that happen in the public right of way can be eminent to the residents' private property. So I just want to even though that that occurred in the public right of way, that it could be imminent if an explosion had occurred, or if they were to have hit um, that the gas main while doing trenchless technology, it could affect the residents and their lives. So and or property, or both. Um, Um, as far as the additional cost for the ground wire, I know it was mentioned that they have a responsibility to do things so that there won't be, I guess, additional cost, that are passed on. But I don't know, there were pictures showing that they were doing every other different things that were not a part of the scope of the work, like towing vehicles with and things like that. And that also is not a part of the scope of the work, but they option to do that additional work that's totally outside the scope of the job. But something that I was requesting that was within the realms um, of the work of which they did, and that they didn't explain to me. And I, that's where I was like, okay, I mean, if you something doesn't match, if you're towing vehicles with a forklift, that's additional cost and time. But you can't, that's that's nowhere a part of the scope of the work. But you're willing to not, you know, make my ground wire so that I can ensure that so that I feel more comfortable with it. Ultimately, they should have never been digging in the back of my property because they didn't have the proper dig ticket. So they should have never been performing that task. Um, it was acknowledged in the first report by Ms. Lanier um, that they didn't have the proper dig ticket, that they were sharing a dig ticket with the water company, and water company allowed them to share the dig ticket. That's against the law, and I would like for that, because if they weren't sharing if they hadn't shared the same dig ticket, if they didn't have the proper credentials in order to do it, the work should have never gotten done in the first place as far as the ground is concerned. So I do want that to be um, considered. Um, Again, that they did not have the proper credentials and authority to be digging in the back of my property. They did not have um, the locates for non-member utilities um, to be digging in the back of my property. And the water company shared their dig ticket with another excavator, which is also against the law. So again, just to be redundant, that since they didn't have the proper dig ticket, they shouldn't have been doing the ground wire in the first place. And I know, they mentioned and that it would be, cost to me if I wanted that work done. I'm just bringing light to if you're towing people's cars and putting in additional sidewalks, then something like my ground wire that I want to make sure that is constantly intact and never lost. Um, I thought that that would be an accommodation that they can make. Hence, also, um, no one never explained that process to me. And I think that that is, from a consumer, I think that that's a very important part of the process to explain to the consumer exactly what's going to go on and what we need to do, what they need to do. And that way the consumer has all the information that they need to in order to make a decision. Um, I could have very well declined this process just like other residents had if I felt like that there were some things that were going to be compromised or that I didn't like personally that were going to go on within my premise. But because they didn't inform me of everything, it didn't give me that opportunity. And then they felt like they can just do it. It just leaves me in a bad situation. Um, again, I want to follow back up on the trenchless technology, the directional boring. Potholing is a part of a requirement. It's an OSHA requirement from what I looked up. Um, it's a way to ensure that when you're passing the gas pipeline or any utility, but specifically for this one, that uh, you're not interrupting that, causing a cross bore or something like that. And and if that were to occur, the dangers could be imminent. And and they know that they are supposed to pothole because they responded to Miss Lanier and told Miss Lanier that they did. But I asked you to please take a look at those pictures. And I didn't know if that was a way that we can share the picture so I can show, but in the picture, it clearly shows that they did not pothole in front of my house and my neighbor's house from what my camera caught. And it's clearly shown there. And I had prompted them on it. And leaving out one day, a few days later, I reminded them again and they waved me off and call a water company. So, you know, call IURC. So I took heed to their suggestions and that's where I'm at now. But they know that potholing is a requirement. Um, and it clearly shows that in the pictures. And is there a way that, I mean, that we can show that representation um, for better understanding if it's not seen or depicted clearly?
Yes, sir, the pictures are a part of the record. So I will look at those very
Okay.
closely and consider those.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So I
The
already,
ones I have, it don't have a page number. Okay. Yeah, I didn't
that's
send a
okay, Mr.
page number or anything like. Oh,
Oh, that's okay, Mr. Davis. I
I
have
know.
them all.
Okay. Okay. I just want to, again, um, this is a very, very, a situation. This is stuff that can get people killed. You know, this is a lucky situation for the residents, and this is something that needs to be corrected. And if they believe that they're not doing anything wrong when they acknowledge that they were potholing, when they acknowledge that they were potholing, that means that lets me know that they know that they're supposed to be potholing. But when I show them the pictures, no one could no one could ever address the pictures. I never got those pictures addressed showing that they didn't pothole. Everything from that point went, it just turned to crickets as far as the potholing. So That is a very important piece because we don't want them performing, because it seems like this process is going to be going on throughout the community, throughout the city. And I mean, you just don't want to see anyone hurt. And I'm just trying to be an advocate for my community and for all those who don't have the insight or the knowledge to know that um, this is not right and my safety is compromised, because not everyone knows that. But you never know who knows what. And I was challenged with, when I tried to prompt them on it, how they fanned me off, which added to the aggravation. And when they gave me the direction to reach out to the water and to IURC, that's when I took the advice, and that's why I'm here again, like I said. Um, just to remind again that this was about a lead water service line replacement. I know previously, I think Ms. Lanier believed that there was an emergency at my property. Um, the things that they said that were a part of the tariff about reasons why they can just access my property and just start doing things. I don't believe that those things, um, were applicable to this, because this can be planned. You can come knock on my door and let me know what you want to do. It's just, there's a common courtesy that goes along with this, and I don't think most people, even in this forum today, would like to come home and find that their yard has been dug up or stuff has been done to their home without their knowledge. You want to know, what was the emergency? Why wasn't I called? I mean, if we're, from looking at it from the shoe from another foot, no one wants to come home to seeing that something was done at their home without their knowledge. No door knocker, no nothing to let us know that we're here doing anything, nothing. I find out this stuff on the fly just from being inquisitive and trying to get to the bottom of things. And these are the things that I learned. And to me, they don't feel right. They're just not right. And if there was an emergency at my home, I'm okay with that. I've had an emergency at my home before, and I don't want to experience that again. So, but this was not an emergency. This was all planned, and I didn't see anything in the tariff for the information that they provided that showed that they can just show up on your property and start just making all these modifications to your property without your knowledge or even without follow up. Um, and I Oh, I do want to add that Miss Lanier did say that she contacted 811, and I believe that's in the first report. And and then I contacted 811 and talked to um, their managing staff and asked them, and they said that there was only one um, contractor that had a dig ticket there, and no others had dig tickets. So anyone who was digging on that property other than them, other than the contractor that was on that dig ticket, was in violation. Um, I know, again, Ms. Lanier had validated that it was okay for the water company to bring in the electrician to dig off of their dig ticket. And um, she 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 believed that it was okay for them to do that in this circumstance. And I just don't believe that no one has the authority to say that someone has the right to. I mean, it's the law. Everyone should have their own day ticket, and no one has the authority to deviate from that. Or in her writing, it seemed like she had said that it was okay. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to uh, the director, or Mr. W's supervisor or whatever, who she cascaded it over to handle. Um, that's all I have to say. I want to make sure that everyone had a chance to be, um, duly apprised of, the concerns, the safety concern, um, how it can affect the community, how it can affect my family, me. Um, at the end of the day, everyone expects to return home and see, things just the way they were and not come home to surprises. And this situation did not require a surprise because there was no emergency. And if they're not doing the proper customer things as far as notifying customers about what they're going to be doing and taking that time, it's creating surprises for customers, and customers don't need to be surprised. This is all intentional, just like the safety portion needs to be intentional. And I believe that's all for now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right. Thank you, everyone, very much for your preparation for today and for being here. I appreciate your time. If there's nothing further, we'd adjourn.
Respondent would just like to ask the commission if it would be helpful for any sort of post-hearing briefing to help align on the issues.
Thank you. I will take the time to carefully consider everyone's arguments and draft an order, so there's no need for any post-hearing briefings at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I anticipate having that order ready within the next 75 days, and that will be mailed to you, Mr. Davis, and it will also be emailed to you, okay?
Okay. Will it come certified or just regular mail?
I was planning on regular. Would that be okay?
Oh, okay. I've had some challenges with mail coming from there before. And
We can do certified.
okay.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor.